Thank you very much. This is News Review, and I am Lavin Jai. Coming up for you on the show today, the Chief Executive Officer of the Kanifing Municipal Council, Senabu Martin Sonko, has been blocked from entering the KMC following her attempt to return to work. We have a report for you on that. Dr. Ismaila Ceesay and Halifa Sallah on Wednesday, that was yesterday, went against each other in a rare debate by Gambia's political leaders there. We have a report for you on that too. Today my big guest will be the former Vice President of the Gambia, Her Excellency Madam Fatoumata Jallow Tambajang. She is my big guest today. We will see what the newspapers report on today. That's where we will start the show. Let's see what the point is saying. Gambia registers 14 new COVID-19 deaths. The Gambia has registered 14 new COVID-19 deaths, making a total death of 227 since March 2020, according to the 348th COVID-19 situation report of the Gambia for the 28th, 29th, and 30th of July 2021, published on 3rd August 2021. Gas explosion claims life in just 4. According to a statement from the National Disaster Management Agency, that's NDMA, the life of a teenager has been claimed in a fire explosion at Jalambang and left 4 injured with destruction of properties. The Standard newspaper today is reporting that GFA, that's Gambia for All, says government wasting money on useless presidential advisors. Dusano fires back. Dr. Bakari Nyambi Ture, the chairman of the political education unit of the Gambia for All party, has said that creating and maintaining what he called useless presidential advisors is wasting taxpayers' money. In a rare interview with the media, Dr. Ture told the Standard on the sidelines of International Youth Workshop organized by Gambia for All in collaboration with the International Federation of Liberal and Radical Youth. The veterinary doctor argued that the president should instead count on his ministers and their technicians to run the State House. In a response, the president's firebrand advisor, Dusano, said Dr. Ture is entitled to his opinion, but that does not make it right. To label the advisors useless is not only impolite, but rather immature. That's Dusano's comments there. Gambia smokers spend $5 million on tobacco products. Tobacco consumers in the country spend a staggering $5 million on tobacco products annually. Health authorities disclosed this to journalists during a press conference held recently on the status of tobacco control in the country. This is the cigarette that Gambians smoke annually. We'll take a short break and we'll be right back. Welcome back. Now, two of the Gambia's political leaders, that's Dr. Ismaila Ceesay and Halifa Sallah, on Wednesday went up against each other in a big night of battle of ideas. The debate is the first of its kind among the nation's political leaders ahead of the December presidential election. I was there. The two leaders met at the American International University, West Africa in Kanifing. Journalist Haruna Drame, while welcoming viewers, said the event was historic.
Today, we intend to interrogate the successes, failures, and lessons that we may have learned out of Coalition 2016.
What started as a silly exchange between Dr. Ismaila Ceesay and Halifa Sallah's aide Kek Sane eventually morphed into a serious national event. Dr. Ismaila Ceesay made a claim: all leaders of Coalition 2016 are responsible for the nation's current predicament. Keks took offense of the claim and challenged Dr. Ceesay to a debate. Dr. Ceesay then challenged the leaders instead to a debate, and Halifa accepted. The debate started a little after 6 p.m. on Wednesday. Dr. Ismaila Ceesay stood his ground that the coalition leaders did indeed fail the nation.
Every Gambian put their trust in the coalition to change this country. That is why we voted. We exchanged our votes for the promise they gave us. And then every Gambian also took part and helped the coalition that led the crusade. Therefore, collectively, we applaud them. But in my opinion, they failed to finish the job, a job that they promised to the Gambian people, and failed to defend and promote the interest of the coalition, and oversights and mistakes led to monumental failures with far-reaching consequences for our democracy. They failed to replace the bad system. They sought to change with a better one, and all the reforms that they promised did not, either were not initiated or they failed.
On Dr. Ceesay's claim, Mr. Salah said the coalition did achieve its fundamental objective of removing Jammeh.
Now we must go, and through the question that will be asked, into the context of nation building after the victory. Why did it take the shape that it did? 25th of December, prior to taking over on the 19th, we established the fact that the constitutional legitimacy was the primary objective to be defended. Electoral legitimacy, primary objective to be defended. We defended that through the impasse and stabilized the country and ensure a change of power through peaceful means. That is the second attainment of the strategic objective of the coalition, to ensure transfer of power through peaceful means. On the 19th, the president assumed office. On the 24th...
Time, Honorable.
Can I borrow 2 minutes and conclude?
Yes, you can borrow your first 2 minutes as well.
So in that sense, then, we have seen that trajectory of a country changing without any looting, without any killing, without any war, no invasion by Ecowas. They were received as forces of solidarity rather than force of invasion, as we have seen in 1981. Who on earth would say that the coalition failed in that respect? Unfortunately, and maybe the Honorable Dr. Ceesay will clear that point, I don't think he has ever read even the coalition agreement. I may be wrong, but his premise will either indicate that he has not read it or does not want to fully explain its essence.
And Dr. Ceesay reacted.
Now, it is no surprise that I did not read the coalition agreement, because the coalition agreement, even those who signed it, don't have access to it. One of the failures of the coalition is that they fail to ensure that they make enough copies so that every signatory has his or her own copy, and it's nowhere to be found online. The only thing online is a draft, like I said, a draft MOU.
The leaders later got into issues bordering on policy.
Well, the civil service reform wasn't even initiated yet, because we still have the same bloated, inefficient civil service. So no reform took place in that front. And that is why, if you look at our 10-point plan, number one, we are promising to diversify the economy, to make sure that there is growth, provide jobs, reform the civil service and state-owned enterprises, and eradicate corruption. So we take civil service reform very seriously. We need to motivate and bring incentives. We need to set standards within the civil service. We need to ensure we digitize the civil service so it is more efficient, so that people are, the civil service is supposed to serve the public. That is why they call it the civil service.
For us, we want to eradicate poverty. We want to eradicate injustice. We want to eradicate ignorance. How to get wealth to that poor farmer, to eradicate the poverty of that farmer, to that young student finishing school at GTTI to come and have a productive base to work. That woman who wants to sell does not have any means to do so. How to get wealth to that person so that they can produce is fundamentally our objective.
Journalists and members of the public who attended the debate were allowed to ask questions. Mr. Zala, at the end of the event, told the Fatu Network he is prepared to debate any political leader.
I've always said that, well, I will be fair, because in actual terms, we will sum up the coalition in so many different ways. All of you must remember that Honorable Hussein Dabo was in prison. Clearly, he would tell everybody that what the coalition did was what was more important than anything in his life. I would assume that. So I don't see where the argument will come. Where people may be interested is what happened within the ranks of the coalition that ultimately led to the type of situation that developed where the coalition as a unit did not continue. Well, you should invite all of us to come again and well, anybody who invites me dealing with any aspect of the coalition, as I've always said, I'm interested with anybody, as I've said with NAD, I've said with the United Front, as I've said with the coalition, because I've participated in all this and I have a duty to explain to the Gambian people what I know about those developments.
The debate has since become a subject of much talk as to who really won the debate. The embattled CEO, Chief Executive Officer, Mrs. Senabu Martin Sonko, yesterday attempted to enter the KMC compound to report back to work, but she was denied entry. More in this. Mrs. Martin Sonko's reputation has been thrown into serious crisis after it emerged she took a loan of $12 million on behalf of the KMC staff and bought a land with the money. KMC Council of Elected Representatives, led by Mayor Bensouda, then resolved for Mrs. Martin Sonko to be suspended along with Director of Finance Dr. Aliu Keta. But the local government ministry, in a letter to Mayor Bensouda, said the action of the council in trying to suspend Mrs. Martin Sonko is illegal. The ministry asked that she be allowed back to work amid an investigation by the ministry. But the beleaguered official could not enter the KMC compound on Wednesday when she tried to do so.
We are denied entry, unfortunately, as you are witnessing. Based on the fact that the security at the gate have been given instruction not to allow us entry if we report to work. For whatever reasons, we don't know. But the reason why we reported to work this morning is that we got copies of a letter that was sent to the Lord Mayor advising him to rescind the decision of sending us on indefinite leave. Mayor wrote to the ministry recommending for our termination and to also send us on indefinite leave with immediate effect. We also filed in a petition against the council for taking that decision against us because we felt that due process was not followed in reaching this decision. The purported letter sending us on indefinite leave that was written, recommending to send us on indefinitely, that was written to the ministry, was actually dated even before the General Council, the letter referred to, for coming up with that recommendation. So the letter was written well before, and even at the General Council, we were not given the chance to be heard, to explain our side of the story. The General Council met and came up with a decision and applied on us. So we saw it very unfair on us. We decided to consult our lawyers, and based on the lawyers' advice, we filed in a petition against the council that was submitted to the ministry. So based on that, and based on the letter that the mayor earlier submitted to the ministry responded with this letter that I am referring to, that made us to report to work this morning.
Yes.
I accepted responsibility as the chief accounting officer for signing the corporate guarantee on behalf of the welfare. But I did not say I was sorry. I wrote in the letter, the whole content of the letter that was written. In fact, it was not an apology letter. I can give you the email that I sent to the mayor in which I attached the purported apology letter. In that letter, I explained the reason that made me to reach the decision of signing the corporate guarantee, and also stated in the letter that if it is perceived to be illegal, then I regret my action.
KM Mayor Tulip Bensouda had last month accused Mrs. Martin Sonko of fraud and said her action is criminal.
In June of this year, my office intercepted financial transactions initiated and entered into by Mrs. Sonko. Following investigations with the related banks and parties, it was discovered that Mrs. Sonko entered into illegal transactions without lawful authority to the tune of $12 million. The actions of Mrs. Sonko are very serious, and we believe they are criminal in nature, ranging from fraud, tax evasion, and theft.
In new developments, the local government ministry has commenced inspecting KMC. The Minister of Local Government, Musa Drame, and KM Mayor Tulip Bensouda have been writing each other letters on the issue. In a letter dated August 2nd, Mr. Drame told Mayor Bensouda the local government ministry was concerned that the decision KMC took in interdicting Mrs. Martin Sonko was illegal. Mr. Drame said his ministry has received a petition from Mrs. Martin Sonko and all officials of the council alleging fraud against the former deputy mayor and a cover-up of the fraud. He had earlier informed the mayor his ministry has called for an inspection of KMC, which would commence immediately. The mayor, in his own letter dated August 3rd, fired back by telling the minister, "We do not agree with your position that the council is usurping the power of the Local Government Service Commission or it has made a decision without authority." Mrs. Martin Sonko's reputation has been thrown into serious crisis after it emerged she took a loan of $12 million on behalf of the KMC staff and bought a land with the money. KMC Council of Elected Representatives led by Mayor Bensouda then resolved for Mrs. Martin Sonko to be suspended along with Director of Finance Dr. Aliu Keta. But the local government ministry, in a letter to Mayor Bensouda, said the action of the council in trying to suspend Mrs. Martin Sonko
Tough Africa Global presents the new Tulip Gardens. Tough Tulip Gardens is set to comprise service plots in sizes ranging from 220 to 570 meters square. Deposit as low as $83,600 is only an 18-month interest-free payment plan with only 20% deposit on the service plots. Please contact 376-2333 or 776-2333.
Thank you. I am Lamin Jai. So my guest today is the Honorable Her Excellency, the former Vice President of the Gambia, Mrs. Fatmata Jallow Tambajang. She is my big guest today. We will discuss various issues, various matters of national interest. Your Excellency, thank you for speaking to the Fata Network.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Let's start with the current political situation in the country. You are someone who is very much respected in the country, one of the country's top political leaders. If you look at the current political situation ahead of the December election, which is just at the corner, there's been a lot of issues that are going around. You can see how people are going about. There's excitement, of course, but the way and manner in which people are going about the December election. As a political leader in this country, what do you read? What do you see?
First of all, I want to thank God Almighty for giving us the life to witness today, and for giving me, thank also Fatu Network for giving me the opportunity to really contribute towards the peace, stability, and security in the country. We have come a long way, and 22 years, we all know where we are coming from, and we know how we got to the coalition 2016, and we know the importance of peace and unity. in my humble mind, I think peace and unity of the Gambians are the elements that God considered to give us a successful and unprecedented coalition. We had the regime change, and we also have a program, a reform program that was adopted by the coalition 2016 members, which of course I always recall for record purposes. The 7 political parties and the 3 non-state political parties, state-owned political parties, that really made a history in concert with every Gambian, whether outside or in the diaspora, whether religious or non-religious. All Gambians, the majority of Gambians contributed to that. Now, we know that today our context, after 22 years, is just like post-war. We need to stabilize the country by way of having the reforms, implementing the reforms, like the security reform, civil service, legislature, and also economic reforms, and all those that matter. The context is also peace and reconciliation. We have had the constitutional review. Lots of money was spent on it. We also have the security reform, which is yet to be completed. We have the civil service reform, which, contrary to what was said yesterday, reform had started. When I was in government, I did present a successful cabinet paper by way of launching the civil service reform. And we have had progress in that in terms of mobilizing through the personality of Dr. Murike Bajane, who I met in Addis Ababa and consulted with him to help us get the Africa Capacity Building Program to come and assess the needs, capacity needs assessment of the country. And they did come, and they have a program in place, which is yet to, of course, to be fully implemented. Now, we have the TRRC, which has completed a wonderful job. We were expecting to have the report maybe end of July, according to their schedule, but now I understand it's going to be September. So, by and large, we also have Land Reform Commission, which was established and is, I think, moving. By and large, what these reforms would need to be successful is peace and stability, starting from social cohesion, people coming together, understanding, and standing for the country first. Politicians, Gambian politicians, I'm calling on them that they must forget about their personal differences and look at what unites us, which is Gambia. And by that way, they would see Gambia first in everything they do, rather than bickering, cursing, and calling names, and by people we don't expect it to come from, political leaders, including the executive.
In your opinion, why do you think this is happening? The issue of so much bile, so much bitterness.
It is happening because, again, we forget what made us enter politics. What made us enter politics is to ensure that Gambia becomes a just, a fair, democratic country, a prosperous country, an inclusive country, where everybody would have his or her well-being, where nobody is going to find the opportunity, find the necessity of going out, especially young people, to die in the ocean, to die in the Mediterranean seas, creating opportunities, creating the jobs, having government to create the enabling environment, and allowing non-stakeholders, private sector, and NGOs to really create jobs, because government is not supposed to, it's not government's business to implement programs. Their business is to have a regulatory framework, an enabling environment that will allow the country to be secured, to be just democratically, to create jobs for the young women, youths, and every other person. So the reason why they are now doing that is because they forgot. They forgot, or either they have forgotten, or they want to really divert the course of history or the course of the coalition or the course of the change for personal interest. I would believe that maturity, we need to exhibit maturity. Political leaders must be matured enough to address issues. What we need today in the country, if you look at the World Government Summit, you look at all the summits that are going on in the world, and also you look at what Gambia needs today, it's peace and stability and discussing policy issues. What works well and how can we make it work better? What doesn't work, how do we make it work better? Government is supposed to be focusing on implementing its reform agenda rather than engaging itself in personal issues.
And now where does that leave the claim that was made by Dr. Ismaila Ceesay that all the coalition leaders failed the Gambians? You were part of that, part and parcel, very central to the coalition 2016. And now you have this political analyst, now a political leader, saying, pointing a finger of blame to all the political leaders, saying they are the ones who are responsible for the current predicament that the country is in. The current predicament also vis-a-vis also includes the issue of political leaders maybe forgetting about the prize, what really matter, and engaging in all these petty non-issues, if you like.
In every institution, there are shortcomings, there are strengths, weaknesses, and there are opportunities. The coalition, I think, comparatively, not because I'm part of them up till now, but the fact that we had regime change, peaceful democratic transfer of power, the dividend that it has created, which is peace and stability and understanding, and the establishment of all the commissions that were under the reform agenda, and also the fact that now you have the voice of the media, you have people are free to express, freedom of expression, freedom of association. These are all the democratic dividends that Gambia is enjoying, and we should not take that for granted. These are great dividends that other countries are not enjoying. The challenge we have is the fact that the coalition was broken at a wrong time by the executive. We had a cohesive coalition, we had a cohesive government, but at the start of things, the executive decided to remove all coalition leaders, people who have played critical role in the coalition, in building the coalition, and forgetting that it was the coalition that brought him to power.
But the president was saying these leaders, same leaders that you're talking about, were derailing or sabotaging, if you like, his development agenda.
I think he needs to be corrected. When I was in government, and any other person who was in the coalition that was in government, everybody was following the national development agenda. As former vice president responsible for government's agenda, I played a critical role, an instrumental role in supporting government to have a donors roundtable conference in the development of the national development program, pioneered by the former Honorable Minister of Finance, Amadou Sane, under the Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs, with the support of all national institutions and agencies, departments and institutions. And we went to the roundtable conference. That's success. From there also, as responsible for government agenda, I ensured that we had the Turkish airline come to Gambia for the first time, with the permission, with the authority of the executive. Each time I traveled, and each time other ministers traveled in the coalition, they would seek the authority of the executive and try to bring a lot of resources, technical assistance to the country. I initiated the strategic policy assistance, technical assistance from UNDP to come and help us to implement the National Development Plan. We also, this is all by way of the background I have in development. I've worked in the UN system for over 30 years.
Yes.
I've been in and out of government for many, many years. I have been working, I'm a civil society activist, and I remain to be a civil society activist, human rights defender. So we did a lot of things, we did achieve a lot of things. But because of political reasons, the executive decided unilaterally, without consultation with the coalition, to remove all coalition members, including my humble self.
And this issue of the president removing or sacking the coalition leaders, one of the coalition leaders who was there while you were also there was Ousainou Darboe. He also said the same thing. He's dismissed the very notion or idea that the president was consulting him, either him or any other coalition leaders. He was going about removing people. While you were there, was the president at any point consulting you while you were vice president? Of course, you served as his first vice president. Was he consulting you in terms of firing these people? And if yes, what were you advising him?
The only person he consulted me about was Honorable Mai Ahmad Fati, that he was going to sack him. And I pleaded with him, I advised him. I said that was not the right time to do it. And he needed to be patient to understand a coalition comprises people from different backgrounds, different cultures. But the goal of Mai Ahmad Fati as the Interior Minister was simply to contribute towards implementing the National Development Agenda. And he did extremely well.
Did he tell you why he did
extremely well? Well, that for him, he had executive issues with him. He did explain the executive issues with me, and still I had thought that did not warrant dismissal.
What were these executive issues?
They were issues of the modus operandi of the way the approach was taken to his job. You know, we have to understand, appreciate that we come from different backgrounds, and we also have varied experience. And as a leader, as a president, you need to be patient. You need to be a manager. The presidency is like a bait you throw in the sea. When you go, you catch different species of fish. It is important as a leader that you are able to manage the people. But I will tell you honestly that I have not seen and not witnessed any coalition member who sabotaged the National Development Plan or who sabotaged personally His Excellency the President. For instance, the OIC, we worked hard with the Foreign Ministry and the Minister of Finance, and I championed the establishment of a board for the OIC. I personally, physically went to the Ministry of Petroleum to look for an office space for the Secretariat. We established the Secretariat, we established the board, and we started to mobilize the $1 million fund from the Saudis. So there was no one really, I believe that it was a great mistake he made, and in my position, if I were in his position, I would have just said, call back the coalition and say, well, I'm sorry. No one is perfect. I'm not perfect. I'm not expecting you to be perfect. He would have done that.
How did you feel about that? I mean, here you are, the president consulting you on the issue of a fellow coalition leader being getting rid of, and you said, no, don't do this, and he yet went ahead and did what he wanted to do. How did you feel about that?
I even went ahead, I went further by inviting the former Vice President, His Excellency Ousainou Darboe, called him to my office of the Vice President, and asked him with Honorable James Gomez, asking them to accompany me to His Excellency's office so that we can plead with him to allow my party to continue with the coalition. Otherwise, to nominate, if there was no way, the alternative would have been to nominate someone from the GMC to continue office. I also went further, and fortunately, he agreed and appointed him as ambassador. He appointed him as ambassador in the Foreign Service, and I personally called Honorable Maifati on a series of occasions just to talk, to broker. So, and we continue, despite all the things he has done to us, we continued supporting him through the coalition.
Exactly, because at some point you mobilized the leaders and then were supporting him.
Exactly.
And then went to him and said you were supporting his development program.
Exactly.
And while this was happening, you have this whole campaign for him to step down after 3 years.
The coalition worked assiduously to ensure there was peace and stability with the 3 years Jotna. That is fundamental. 3 years Jotna would have had an objective of putting this country upside down. We stood. I would stay on the phone till 3 a.m., 5 a.m., talking with the people in the diaspora, those who were organizing the 3 years Jotna, just to bring them to understand that Gambia did not need that type of protest. It is their fundamental right to protest, but the approach was wrong. They could have written a petition and engaged government, discussed with government. But we stood up. The coalition stood up to support the presidency, to support the executive, and to support Gambia. More importantly, it was to support Gambia for peace and stability. We did that. Then we asked him to we had a budget. We were prepared to go countrywide for a peace tour. We made the budget, we sent it to him. He said that was too much. Do you think I will sit in a situation where they will escalate the budget? I have contributed financially. I think I have contributed so much to the coalition.
How much was that?
We were about 5 million.
And he said that was too much.
It was going to be a 10-day tour throughout the country for peace and stability. He said it was too much. But then we saw him sponsoring more than that, the coalition Gambia for 5 years.
Yes.
Gambia for 5 years, what he spent on Gambia for 5 years was far more. It exceeded what the coalition wanted. But we stood forth for him, and we decided boldly, at the midst of all this 3 years Jotna, the political turmoil, we stood and extended his social mandate to 5 years.
And you came under fire for that. People criticized you.
People criticized me.
Yes.
They criticized me, but you know, as a leader, if you are sensitive to criticism, you can never lead. A leader should listen, should be able to understand what the issues that people talk about, to their grievances. Some of the people who criticize, sometimes I would engage them and explain to them why we did it. It was all in the supreme interest of peace and stability in this country. And after that, the situation was diffused. It was not because what he said that constitutionally it's 5 years, so he should forget about his social contract. Social contract is equally important as constitutional contract.
Was it legally binding? Because this was the debate all throughout. That is where the argument has been. The issue of the social contract, the agreement. Yesterday, Halifa Sallah went up against Dr. Ismail Cisse. He had the agreement. And Dr. Ismail Cisse saying this is legally binding. If the president or all the candidates who vied for the coalition leadership had signed the agreement, then it becomes binding.
Yes.
And it was it was only natural and fair that the president respected that and stepped down after 3 years. But here you are, you were part of that, you knew what what all the things that happened around the issue of the agreement. You were one of the leaders. But you said 5 years.
I am one of the signatories to the agreement. I am the co-chair of the coalition, now the chair, because the other chair doesn't come. And but you have to look at circumstances. We were compelled by the emerging circumstance, which is fundamentally what we said in our statement to the press, that we had thought 3 years would be sufficient for him to come down and prepare democratic elections to usher another government. But unfortunately, we did not find anything. I am telling you the truth, because I want to be respected. I want to lose everything in my life other than two things:
your integrity,
my faith, and my integrity. We found only 1 month cover in the treasury. The treasury was looted by the former president, Yahya Jammeh. That 1 month cover could not really even pay the salaries of the civil service, not much to provide social basic services. We had to run and find funding. The World Bank gave us 10 million. EU gave us 5 million for budget support. And then other countries like the UNDP came in, the UN system, the Ecowas came in terms of helping us support the peace process. And the African Union also came with their capacity building. They also came to support us with the security reform, civil service reform. So we could not really say we have an agenda that we have not even started, that for which we didn't have any money, any funding. It was really would have been critical, chaotic, if we had really stepped down at 3 years. So I'm not defending His Excellency Adama Barrow or the executive or the coalition government. I am defending, it was mainly we were the coalition as a body, as a credible body, was defending the Gambia. And what the shortcomings, the challenge we had and the mistake we had was not to consistently engage the Gambian population, the citizens, in terms of really communicating the challenges we had before the end of the 3 years. If the coalition had done that, and if the executive was committed to engaging the Gambian citizens, telling them, well, this is what we said, but instead of telling them it is the Constitution, I have 5 years mandate of the Constitution, I think it should have been the other way around, engaging the Gambian citizens, saying that, well, we wanted 3 years, but unfortunately this is the situation we found. So we had a weak communication infrastructure, which really did not allow us to engage the government, the citizens, and be in tandem with them to explain the situation and to also urge them, to plead with them. We went to the electorate, they voted, and we had 18,000 votes. We won by 18,000 votes. Those 18,000 votes, people gave it to us. So whatever happened, being public servant, we should have gone back to say, this is what happened. Gambians are understanding. We make a lot of noise, but if you explain to them, they are understanding. They will understand and say, well, okay, now we give you the mandate to go back to complete 5 years. But after 5 years, the coalition, we said up to 5 years. And after 5 years, whatever he does, that will be a responsibility. That will be his responsibility.
Now, as a leader, don't you think you were also a little naive in respect of President Barrow? Here is a president who arbitrarily started firing all the leaders. And in fact, this was the reason why leaders said they walked away. They didn't want to have anything to do with this coalition, because here is a president who was acting as an executive president, removing people from government without consulting anybody. You were there while this was happening, and the contract was 3 years. Yet you let him go. You let him go scot-free and advocated or campaigned for him to serve for 5 years.
Well, we as a coalition, whatever we did it as a coalition. Of course, I take responsibility as a leader, and I'm not afraid to take responsibility as a leader. And I am not naive in championing the cause for 5 years to complete the agenda, the reform agenda. It was out of the interest of the country's peace and stability, and also being a mature leader. I cannot take it personal. My sacking should not be personal. It is the Constitution that is inadequate in terms of how the executive exercises its power. Why? The Constitution, you can fire and hire and fire at the whims and pleasure of the executive. So he has the power of using the Constitution to appoint and using the Constitution to fire without consultation. Even though the Constitution is quiet about the hiring and firing, the appointment and firing, any mature leader will require to engage the people he's working with, the people who he can also have advisors before he makes informed decisions. You see? But if you have a constitution that says that, well, appointing a vice president has to go through the legislature, for instance. Appointing ministers and so forth, members of cabinet would have to go through the legislature. The legislature, which is the executive arm of government, independent, as a judiciary, would be, as a legislature, would have the power to review the hiring and the firing of cabinet ministers and other political leaders. But this is our constitution. Maybe the new constitution that we are supposed to have, we definitely need to look at those things, because it's not easy firing someone who is not right, and it's not a human right to really just sit at your whims and pleasure and fire somebody for political reasons.
Would you say that is what happened?
My case, it's a political reason. All those who were fired were for political reasons. There was none of us, I can assure you, none of the people who were fired
genuine grounds.
On genuine grounds. The executive had no genuine grounds to fire us.
Would you say now the president has his own political party and now he is seeking re-election in December? Would you say this was the hidden agenda? And for the president to put across this agenda, all of you needed to go home?
Well, I have little experience and I'm intuitive.
No, you have vast experience.
I have little experience, modest experience, and also I'm intuitive.
Yes.
And I have walked through the length and breadth of this country. I've walked worldwide. I've traveled. I've interacted with people at the highest level of politics, economic, and social. I can anticipate, many a time, I can anticipate what people do. The people I work with. I had anticipated that he was going to have his party.
The signs were there.
The signs were there. The signs were there. So, but I anticipated, but from the religious point of view, what did God say? We must not speculate. What did God say? We must not interfere in the matters that don't affect us, or in matters that would bring some sort of chaos or crisis in any institution. And being the former vice president at the time, my responsibility was to ensure there was peace and stability, engaging the coalition members every now and then, talking to them and seeing how we go, settling crisis You know, like we had crisis, Busumbala, we had the doctors' crisis, we had the crisis in Burfoot, the Manjagos against the Manjagos and the Mandigos on graveyard issue, you know. So many crises that the coalition stood up for. So for us, whatever is done to which we did not protest was the fact that in the context we are living, which is peace and stability, we all have to be patient. We all have to swallow our ego, and we all have to, especially me, I could be maybe the most senior, in cabinet, apart from my brother James and others. I may be the most senior in cabinet. So my experience doesn't really allow me, I would be failing if I behaved in another way. So for me, what it demonstrates is the fact that for me it's Gambia first, no matter what happens to me. During the coalition, it was very dangerous. I lived in this house alone. My children were all abroad. I was alone in this house. Anything could have happened to me. I was in prison. I was in the hospitals. I was everywhere, in the courts, everywhere. But because I had, and every day what I did was, I had my prayer mat, I had my prayer bead, I had my Quran al-Karim, I had one cloth that I would put, that I had a bag. I would say, anytime the NIA comes for me, they can take me. I was ready to die for my country.
I remember the day you spoke at Kairaba. The NIA were everywhere and you spoke very bravely.
Yes, and so I'm ready to die.
Yes, that you are not afraid of Jammeh.
No.
Now, the emergence of NPP has been trailed by so much rancor. I mean, all the issues that are going on now, the politics of insult, the cursing, the name calling, all the personal attacks, you see it is worse in only two camps. UDP, NPP, father-son camp.
Yes, that's why I'm disappointed. And at some point I did call His Excellency. From time to time I do call him. When things don't work, I call him. And I tell him, well, I think we need to reconsider a situation that will stabilize the country. I will tell him that no matter what, you are the father of the nation. You cannot have it right in your house 100%, not much in a community or in a country. You are the leader, so you need to be patient, you need to be tolerant, and you need to focus on the agenda. I do call him. I'm talking here in the press, worldwide, people will hear me, and he would attest to it. Just to show you that for me, I stand up for the country. And I am disappointed. And Honorable Excellency, former Excellency Usainu Dabo, he's like a family member, not like a family member, he's a family member, all of them, the President and Usainu Dabo. They are both.
All of you are from URR.
No, I'm not from URR.
Yes.
I'm not from URR, but
yes.
from family-wise,
yes.
we have some relationship, very close relationship,
yes.
both with the executive and the former Vice President. So, and because I fear God and because I know I'm standing for the country, I want to really speak the truth. I spoke truth to tyranny, to the tyrant. I don't see why I shouldn't speak truth to people who are now engaged in democratization of our country. I'm really disappointed that His Excellency, the two excellencies, will really go into this level, of aggressive or aggression or antagonism, because Excellency Usainu says, the Excellency Adama Barrow told the nation that Excellency Usainu is his father. Vice versa, Excellency Usainu says Excellency Adama Barrow is his son.
Yes.
One has to look at, apart from relationship, you have to look at Islam. What does our religious books tell us? It will be Bible, what is Holy Quran or whatever. Is haram is God has caused people who curse. He said, I don't like people who curse. He doesn't like people who suppress. He doesn't like people who oppress, because he has not oppressed us. And we do so many things, and Allah still forgives us during the 5 daily prayers. So I'm calling, I am a voice of conscience. I want to live by a voice of conscience and die as a voice of conscience. I've called on them, and I'm still calling them openly to understand, to reconcile, and to focus on issues that matter, issues of national interest. They all have their manifestos, they all have their agenda. Let each one of them focus on the agenda. Government should give us confidence and hope. Confidence in saying that this is what we plan to do and we will do it. Give us confidence that we have COVID-19. Look at COVID-19. There are so many issues that the government should focus on, other than the executive standing to talk about personalities attacking each other. The COVID-19 the rates are really increasing. What can we do? We need to go out. I'm an interim advisor on the communication strategy of the Ministry of Health and Social Welfare. Sensitize the communities, invest resources in in combating COVID. We have inadequate equipment. The hospitals are overwhelmed. Ndemban Clinic is overwhelmed. The centralized health system is appalling. Those are the type of things. The economy is growing, but how do we stabilize the economy in the face of COVID-19, which has made global economic recession, which has, of course, effects, ramifications on national economies? What should government talk about? How do I handle the private sector? How can I support the private sector by providing them subsidies? How do I help the poor people, the 80% of our poor people and young people? How can I help them to create jobs? Or inform the people that this is what you're doing for the communities to eradicate poverty. You know, up till now, recently, I went up country, and it's sad to say that if you're talking about COVID, you take aggressive, bold decisions, because some communities don't have water to drink. How can you tell them to wash their hands against COVID? They don't have 3 meals a day. How can you ask them to buy $25 worth of masks? You understand? The PPEs, the equipment for COVID, is inadequate. The health personnel are poorly paid. These are some of the issues that creativeness, we need creative leadership, transformative leadership, looking at how best can you really ensure the well-being of your people, while also ensuring that there is stability, security, and social cohesion. That's the focus, what the executive should focus on. The other side should focus on having a balance of this is what has worked. When I come in as government, this is what I'm going to do. They need to sell their agenda rather than really being at each other's throat. So I'm calling on them in the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is our creator, our sole creator, to really stop the name calling, the insults, the aggression. And I also call on their supporters. The advisors to the executive, I'm also calling on them. Do not tell the executive, the president, His Excellency, what he wants to hear. Tell him the truth. Help him. If somebody has confidence in you and brings you as advisor, you must not look at your interest. You must look at the interests of the country. Your Excellency, this is what you are thinking, but because of the situation, we advise you do so, do so. And I know His Excellency Adama Barrow. He listens. He listens. If he doesn't listen one time, the second time, When he makes a mistake, he will admit that he made a mistake. So I'm also calling on his advisors to be honest, to give him good advice, so that he can move the country up to the end of this year.
Now, the issue of dynasty politics in our country, you have these two political leaders, but you would have people who would say that the militants are the problem here, because these are the people who will sit in their houses and then make odious, insulting or attacking the other leader or the other camp. So how does these two leaders go about reining in on their militants and their supporters and letting them know that this is unacceptable?
I will not say it is the fault of the militants. I would say it's the fault of the leaders. If I am a parent in my home, whatever my child does, any one of them does, I am overall accountable. As a leader, especially a leader of a country or an aspiring leader, whatever your militants do is your responsibility. If they make odious, you tell them, you have to educate them. This is not what I want. The executive should tell his militants, this is not what I want. What I want is for you to see how best you can support the peace process, social cohesion, transparent and democratic elections, for us to have peace and stability in the country, but not to make odious. The political leaders are responsible. They are solely responsible for what the militants are doing. If they said no, stop, they will stop. They will stop.
Now let me bring you back to the claim, because I'm not even sure that this was settled. You were a coalition leader. Ali Fasala was a coalition leader, and he was up against Dr. Ismail Assise over the claim that you failed the Gambian people. Did you fail us?
No, the coalition never failed the Gambian people. As I say, this is an unprecedented institution. For the first time in the history of Gambia, we had 96 coalition, it failed. 206, it failed. 2011, it failed. 2011, it failed. It was Allah helped us through understanding and unity. God blessed our understanding and unity to give us the change. That alone, that peace, the peace we have is invaluable. You cannot quantify it. It's immeasurable, the peace and stability today we have in the country. Freedom of association, freedom of the press. There might be skirmishes from time to time, arrest here, arrest there. But once people start, some people have been arrested wrongly, and because of the democratic dispensation or the environment, they have been released without being taken to justice, without being taken to prison. You also have, again, we have the issue of the reform agenda. TRRC is a success story. It's a success story. We have the security, the civil service reform. Maybe I should say half and half. But we have the judiciary, the constitutional review. It's a success story. If they had allowed the constitution to be adopted, we would have moved to the Third Republic. But for some personal reasons, political leadership reasons, they killed it. They killed it. It could have been really that unifying factor that will correct. It doesn't really make sense. If we say the entire nation said they didn't want the constitution was unilaterally engineered by the former president, adopted by his legal team, you understand, and forced into the throat of the Gambians. How can you now have the opportunity, spend all that money in the constitutional review and sit back and say, no, we are going back to the old constitution because of personal interest?
Now, you have President Barrow seeking re-election. In 2016, it was done this way. It was a grand coalition against a deep-seated incumbent. And the 2021 election, what would you want to see? Do you want to see a grand coalition against President Adam Barrow or a grand coalition against a major political party?
No, I will not. I am not a person that talks against people. I can criticize issues because that's what professionalism is. And that's what a believer should do. What I'm telling you, my son, this country for the next 20 years, may not be around, but it's going to be driven by a coalition. There is no one party today, no matter how you have money, no matter how you have connections, no matter how you have militants, no matter what you have, you can call it, name it, up to the sky. There is no one party who is going to win, even with the first come, past post. There is no one who is going to win. You know why? Fundamental reason number one. People are getting more aware. More youths have voted. Two, the diaspora is divided. Number three, the emergence of political parties. We have 18 political parties. Do you mean to say that those political parties, none of them will have 500 votes? They may have 500 here, 1,000 here. And it's very, very likely that we may have a second round. 2011 will have a second round.
But there's also this chance that all of these parties that are coming, a lot of them would not compete in the election, because if you don't have the requirement, you need like people, at least 10,000 people to sign up to your party if you are to get nominated. There is every likelihood that a lot of the parties may not be able to fulfill those requirements and get disqualified.
But they have already fulfilled the requirements. They have 10,000 signatories. They've paid the 1 million for the nomination. They've got the nomination forms. They have everything. So, you know why? Most of these parties emerged as a way of breaking point, breaking the balance, the possible balance between the two main political parties. That is the NPP and the UDP, because they are the major political parties. And most of them have established parties. Some are genuine, but others are like what Yusundur said, feke machibole. They want to have, even if it is 500 votes, every vote counts. I'm sure that when we have second round, these political parties will want to include them. So they would say, well, it's a strategic way of
negotiating your own
inclusion as a political party.
Yes.
Yes.
So I mean, the reason I ask you about this issue of coalition is this. What is happening is that APRC, there are signs, and they are saying that they want to work with the NPP, President Barrow's party. Where does that leave the main opposition party, UDP? So it would appear that the incumbent is working towards a grand coalition against a major or the main opposition. I mean, how do you see that?
As a political strategist, I think the APRC is a strong party to be reckoned with. It is still strong on the ground. It has a structure, and it has its loyal members, militants. And in terms of financing, I'm not sure, but I think they still have financing. But they are divided. They are not, I don't think the entire APRC government, APRC party is going to be allied with, going in alliance with NPP. They might be divided. You will be amazed. You'll be surprised if you don't find some of them going with UDP. And you may be also be amazed or surprised if some of these small political parties don't decide to go with UDP.
So that is where the problem lies for you.
There is a probability that we will have a second round, no matter what. And by way of also...
but when you say second round, what do you mean? Remember, it's a simple majority
A simple
system.
majority, even
yes.
a simple majority.
Yes.
Even if NPP goes with APRC, it is not 100% that they will pass the post.
And they have the smaller parties, NRP, NCP, PPP. President Barrow has all of that on his side.
You have to look at the strength of the NRP, the strength of NCP, the strength of GMC, not GMC, the strength of GPDP. You have to look
PPP.
at their. You have to look at the PPP. You have to look at their strength. Now, what obtains, and there would be how hard they work, how hard they forget about political bickering and getting at each other's throat and working hard on the ground to get majority, either of the parties, UDP and this thing. They have hard work, it's hard work.
And when you look at APRC, this is the former president's party, someone who committed some really terrible things in this country. There is an investigation rolled out, of course, by President Adama Barrow and his government. And now you have these signs of that same president wanting to work with a party whose leader is being indicted of all these crimes. What do you say to that?
Personally, I don't think it's a good idea. Personally, I don't think it's a good idea. Yes.
You don't think it's a good idea?
And when I was in government, I did advise him that that's not a good idea. We need to clear the air. We need to clear everything that was done in terms of atrocities, in terms of crime against humanity, crime against Gambians, in terms of money laundering, in terms of looting the country, in terms of atrocities. We need to clear all those issues in order before we can go into into alliance with APRC. Before they can go, NPP can go with alliance in the APRC. Don't take me wrong. There are people in the APRC who are Gambians, and all of them are Gambians, and they have a right to go with any party they want. But from the political aspect, from the political analysis, political spectrum, it is too soon for NPP or any other party to go into alliance with APRC.
Now, APRC...
I would...
Thank you. I am Lavenjai. So my guest today, feeling in the party is to do everything humanly possible, even if it means aligning with President Barrow. They are ready and willing to do that to stop. This is what some of their leaders are saying. I know. That the emergence of UDP will spell the doom, will spell the death of APRC. Say though they really don't want UDP to take power. And
well, you know, I think they need to forget about tribal lines. They need to forget about tribalism, and they need to really eradicate that notion of Mandinka against Jola, against Fula or whatever. What they need to look at is to look at what is in the best interest of the country. Let's all look at Gambia first. Democracy is a rule of law. Respect for human rights, justice, social justice, equitable development for the well-being of everyone. There is no way UDP, Gambians will allow UDP or any other party that God would bring Usher into government 2011 to really have a vendetta or to victimize or antagonize or discriminate against any other tribe.
And Madam former Vice President, this fear, even the president has this fear that when UDP takes power, all of us are going to suffer. He said this in his meetings time and again, that these are people who are going about profiling people, saying they are more Gambian than others. When they take power, all of us are going to suffer in this country. These are his words,
yes.
the president.
Yeah, I think His Excellency needs to change his approach. That's my personal and humble feeling. He must, that again is going too personal. That again is out of context of what we are living today. Our context to the peace and reconciliation. I would have thought that if I were within to advise him, and even now I'm calling on him with this interview, and also personal when I have the opportunity to talk to him, is to focus on the agenda. This is what we have as agenda. There are other political parties who have their own agenda, but this is what we can do, this is what we promise you, and this is what we want to deliver. But the moment the leadership as the father of the nation, I don't think it is appropriate, I don't think it's right for him to really go to that level of saying, if this political party comes, they are going to do this against this against. No. That's speculation.
It's not based on fact.
It's not based on any, it's baseless. There are no facts about that. So both of them, and also UDP leadership should also forget about saying that this is what you can say. For instance, this is what they had promised to deliver. And this is what they're supposed to deliver today with the context. The context is complex. This 2011 is an abnormal election. It's an election that is taking place in an abnormal environment, including COVID, difficult environment. So they should focus on the complexities, the challenges, and the way forward for a new Gambia, where we will talk about leaving poverty to become history, where we will talk about decentralization, where people will have equal opportunities, where we will have sovereign national wealth, create national wealth for Gambians, and development of rural communities, providing social basic services, access to everyone. There is no reason why people in Kotu here should have more access to quality education when people in Koina don't have it. Why are people not still having 3 meals a day? How can we do that? So let them focus on issues. Once they focus on issues, Gambians will respect them. Gambians will make informed decisions as to who is best for Gambia 2011.
Do you think political debate is one way of helping them or guiding our political leaders in terms of focusing on the issues? Because most of the time when these political leaders sit at their own meetings, at their own convenience, most of the times the things they speak on or talk about are not based on issues, or they are based on what they want their supporters to hear and clap for them.
I'm very happy last night I listened to the debate between Dr. Ismaila Sise and Honorable Halifa Sallah. I was highly impressed by the maturity, by the approach, by the substance they discussed in the debate. There are maybe gaps here and there, but it's the first initiative. But comparatively, it was an excellent avenue and a conduit for political leaders to sell their agenda to Gambians. That is the best way forward. It's one of the best way forward. Once they do that, I'm sure that some of these problems, political crisis that is happening between the two political main parties, NPP and UDP, will finally find its way out.
Now let me bring you back on the APRC. Just a week or so ago, a fortnight ago, they came out in the streets asking the president to disregard. And disregard, I mean, they are questioning the appointments of the officials of the TRRC. So the strategy is, let us put that into doubt, and then the president will forget about the implementation part of the TRRC and the investigation and the findings and the recommendations that the investigation would come up with. What is your take on that, APRC petitioning the president?
Well, they have the right to petition the president, but they don't have, they don't have, how do you call it? They don't have the right reason to petition him. You know, when you petition, you must have good grounds, solid grounds, justification. Today in the Gambia, who will tell you, who, apart from APRC, who will you hear saying that the TRRC report should not be implemented? Every Gambian wants this TRRC to be implemented. The country is still healing. We all have been traumatized. We have been directly or indirectly affected by the atrocities, by the disappearances, by the arbitrary incarceration of people, by the rape of women, by the torture. Everybody has been affected, directly or indirectly. If it is not a family member, it's a friend. Even if it's a friend, it's a Gambian, and the Gambian indirectly affects you. So it will be really dangerous. I say word dangerous. And it would have adverse effects on government if they fail to implement the TRRC report. My urge and appeal to the government is for them to follow the procedures, that is looking at it as a white paper in cabinet, and deciding the best way for the Gambia, so that we can never, as the TRRC slogan says, never again. But if they drop the TRRC, the money, the funds they have invested in it is not important. What is important is the content of the report. The content of the report, that is the foundation. The TRRC, if implemented, is going to be the foundation of stability, peace, social cohesion. Forgive and forget. Forgive, sometimes it takes time to forget. But also, it's a foundation where people will respect each other, have the rule of law, and never allow any regime for the rest of prosperity, rest of Gambian life to happen anymore. So I would think that, and it's going, sometimes when you say we forget and we forgive, but let me tell you, my son, there is no peace without justice. No peace without justice. Those who have committed atrocities and for whom their names have been mentioned through the public hearings the world has had, they need to be prosecuted. They need to be pursued to justice. They need to be taken to justice. Depends on the people they have done it against, because in Islam, if you wrong people, even if you kill somebody, you can pay blood money. You can reconcile with the family. But other than that, everyone who has been legally found, in my humble opinion, whoever has been legally found has been wanting and have committed a heinous crime against humanity as a Gambian citizen should be pursued to justice, should be brought to justice.
Ma, earlier this year, you vied for the role of AU Deputy Chairperson. Your bid was unsuccessful. What can you tell us about this? This is a top role that you wanted, but it was given to someone else. What can you tell us?
Yeah, what happened is that I was nominated by government, and but the government did not support it as it should have. Because when you nominate someone, The procedure is that you write to the 54 countries and tell them this is my nominated citizen. You show them your credentials and you show the commitment, political commitment to the nomination. They did not do that.
And the foreign minister needs to fly out if he needs to do that, to go to countries and
then
lobby.
After writing the letters, the foreign minister, the minister of foreign minister with some of his appropriate colleagues needed to go country by country to muster support from the 54 countries. Rwanda did it. All the countries that had nominated their people, their citizens, did that. That was a big failure on the part of government.
Why do you think you didn't get the necessary support?
Well, there was no cause for me not to get the support, because I supported the government. I struggled for the government within and outside the coalition to ensure that we have a government. If the government cannot reward me by supporting my candidature, what they did was just to nominate me. It was just a formality. Nominate and then dump my dossier at the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Do you feel disappointed?
I don't feel disappointed.
But you have every right to feel disappointed.
In my life, I always expect the unexpected. That's my upbringing. I never put my mind to anything fixed that I will get this, I should get it. What I should get, God will give it to me. What I miss through the fault or deliberate action of another person, God will give it to me in another way, double. That's what I believe. And it makes me know people better. That's also a great asset, knowing people you are dealing with, knowing people what they think about you and how they will handle you and how they deal with your situation. It makes me know, it increases me. It gives me leverage over the people who do bad things to me. Because after whatever they do to me, they see me smile. They see me working for my country. They see me supporting the government. So what? I will do what I'm supposed to do for them. Whoever doesn't want to do what he or she is supposed to do for me, I ask God to guide them in the straight path.
Is this down to the issues between you and Tangara? I mean, Tangara was permanent secretary at permanent secretary. Well, not permanent secretary. At the UN, serving as the country's top diplomat there. And you were here on this issue that came up, that you wrote a letter that even triggered your removal. Do you think this must have been the reason, the issue of you or Dr. Mamadou Tangara not trusting you? Do you think there are personal issues that must have led to you not being supported enough?
Yeah, I don't think Tangara doesn't trust me. I don't think he distrusts me. And I don't think I will not lay the blame on Tangara. The blame is on the executive, His Excellency President Adama Barrow. After all, he's the president. The minister is under the president. There is no one minister who can have your own say or make a decision outside the presidency. So I will not, Tangara has nothing to do with it. No matter how he may have engineered it, no matter what he may have done it between him and God, that's it. But for me, I take the responsibility. I hold the executive accountable. But what happened again, this is the government aspect of it, but from the sub-regional aspect of it, Ecowas had decided to give the other point of government is that Nigeria, who had a commissioner who nominated a commissioner, sent their foreign minister here in the Gambia. How does it go? You have nominated your citizen at the highest level, former vice president, with all the expertise I have. You did not go to Nigeria, but you allow Nigerian foreign minister to come here and lobby for you to vote
vote for that
Nigeria. That is self-explanatory. Every intelligent person will understand the move to that, the ulterior motive to that. Then, from the sub-regional level, Ecowas had decided that they will support Nigeria for peace and security, because they said peace and security is the priority of Africa. But how can you compare peace and security and somebody in the executive, deputy chairperson? If the government was strong, as Nigeria was strong, as Ghana and others,
it would not have happened.
We would have had it. We would have had it. And what the mistake they had made was that to think it is me who was going to have and benefit from the position. It was Gambia.
Because this was going to be a Gambia
It was going to be a Gambia.
Gambian thing.
It was going to be a Gambia. It was going to be a pride for Gambia, credit for Gambia, and not me. I will just be there as a servant of Gambia and Africa as a whole.
Flying our flag high.
Exactly. But then Gambia, I didn't lose, so why should I be angry? It is Gambia who lost. It is
Do you
Gambia.
think this
It's
is
sad
submitting?
It's sad though that I, as a Gambian, am seeing government denying my country from something that they should have got, that something that the country should have got. I'm disappointed at that.
Do you think the country also, or the government led by President Barrow, was being submissive to Nigeria? Maybe they are putting all these things into consideration, that Nigeria played a big role in helping us get out of the Jammeh mess. So they are also trying to reciprocate. Or,
you know,
do you think that must have played any part, any role?
You know, in life, you have to look at your sovereignty. No matter how people help you, you have to protect your citizens. You have to safeguard the interests and rights of your citizens. You have to protect your country.
Well, America says America first.
America
Why
first.
Can't
Why can't we say
Gambia
first?
Gambia first.
Gambia first. Gambia first. No matter what they may have done, they were doing their work. It was their mandate within the Ecowas to come and support Gambia when Gambia was on fire.
So they did not do us any favor.
They should have looked, even the president should have considered the fact that I personally called Ecowas. I personally suggested to him, advised him, that things were tough, we need to call in Ecowas. And because of the little experience I've had in the international community, I called, he approved, he authorized me on the advice, he accepted my advice and allowed me to call on Ecowas. I went and called High Excellency, the former President Ellen Johnson, explained the situation, the seriousness of the situation, the gravity of the situation, the implications, political implications it had, and that was why Ecowas came here. This is something people don't know.
Many people don't
I
know.
personally called in Ecowas in this country, to this country.
This is something that a lot of people don't know.
Nobody knows that. This is the first time I'm involved in this. Yes. I advised him. I was not vice president. I was just a coalition co-chair. But I thought it's important for us to all work hard, to be committed, to do our best, to share the experience and the expertise we had to stabilize the country. Because otherwise, it was going to be havoc. Khalifa was running helter-skelter. I was running helter-skelter. Yes.
Now, let's also talk about, well, election is upon us. It's looming and looming large. December, maybe less than 4 months away. Why have you not joined a party?
No.
A political leader of your standing.
Mm-hmm.
You are here partyless.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm thinking about it.
Are you planning on running for president?
I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about what to do. I'm thinking about my, you might say that, oh, it's all time is running out, but...
You don't have time. Time is not on your side.
You're saying time is running out, but considering what happened with the coalition, we didn't have much time, and we won. And considering that saying yes or no can take just a second, I don't want to make any mistake. I'm studying the political environment, studying also the political parties. Already I know the context of the country. I know what I want for my country. And so very soon I will decide on what to do. And when I decide, I will let you know.
Ma, we've run out of time, but thank you very much for agreeing to speak to us. We appreciate it.
You're welcome. Anytime.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Anytime. I thank you so much, and I pray that...
If you have any additional thing to say.
The additional thing to say is just to call on again on everybody, particularly the political leaders, the executive, and UDP, and all other leaders, including the religious leaders, which I did not mention, but are also important to mention them. Recently, I saw them going to State House and trying to ally politically with His Excellency the NPP. I think that is not the role of imams and alcalos. I think they should be out of politics. The political advisor, religious advisor to the president, Kotoke Dembo Bojang, Honorable Dembo Bojang, is a seasoned politician. He's a veteran. He is a wise veteran. Yet I think he needs to really help the president to really leave a way to exclude religious leaders and alcalos, community leaders, out of politics. That's why we said governors, when we came to power, we said the governors are not going to be they're going to be non-political, non-partisan politicians. They should be free, they should be civil servants. So these are people who should really guide us in the way of what God commands us to do, protect us and advise us against doing what God doesn't want us to do. They have their institution. Their institution is to really focus on Islam or to focus on Christianity or whatever. But because it's the Muslim leaders who went, I really want to urge them. I'm begging them as a daughter. I will never disrespect anybody in this country, even my children, my grandchildren. I don't disrespect. I don't like to disrespect anybody because God has given respect. He created everyone. And He said in the Holy Quran, He said, وَلَكَرْ كَرَمْنَا يَا بَنِي آدَمَ. Among every creation, the best is mankind or womankind. So who am I to disrespect anybody? So with due respect to the religious leaders, they must do away, they must avoid politics. They must not interfere with politics. They must not answer to His Excellency, the executive, His Excellency's call for them to participate in politics. If they do that, they have issues with God Almighty. They will be accountable here and next world. And I don't want that to happen. I have a lot of respect for all of them. I have a respect for all leaders. So this is the call that I want to make to the religious leaders. For the political leaders, I want them to have the elections, the process, the campaign, peaceful, taking into consideration our context. Context today is peace and stability, social cohesion. That they should avoid anything that would really put Gambia into a laughingstock. So, and the last thing is for me to pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God Almighty, to give us peace and stability, unity of purpose, and smooth elections 2011, democratic, transparent, and free and fair elections, and acceptance of whoever is the winner. Allahumma ameen.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. That is my guest today, the former Vice President of the Gambia, Mrs. Fatoumata Jallow Tambajang. Until next time. The feeling in the party is